Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Board District 5's third virtual town hall. My name is Jackie Goldberg. I'm a school board member and I'm very proud to represent Board District 5. But before we begin, I would like to take care of a few housekeeping items.
Buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos al tercer foro virtual del Distrito 5 de la Junta Directiva. Les habló Jackie Goldberg, orgullosa representante del Distrito 5 de la Junta de Educación. Antes de comenzar, quisiéramos repasar unos puntos generales.
First of all, you can listen to this webinar in English or Spanish. For Spanish, click the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom window and then select Spanish. We have our wonderful interpreters from the LAUSD translation unit here, and they'll translate everything that's being said. So again, if you're at a computer and want to listen in Spanish, click the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom window and then select Spanish.
Primeramente, pueden escuchar este webinario en inglés o en español. Para escuchar en español, hagan clic en el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior de la ventana de Zoom y seleccionen español. Nuestras maravillosas intérpretes de la unidad de traducción de LAUSD están traduciendo todo lo que estamos diciendo, así que nuevamente, si están en sus computadoras y quieren escuchar en español, hagan clic en el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior de la ventana de Zoom y seleccionen español.
If you have any trouble switching the language to Spanish using the interpretation button, you can also use your phone to call into our Spanish audio line, which is already set up and running. The number and access code for that are on the invitation for this event.
Si tienen dificultades para cambiar el idioma a español con el botón de interpretación, también pueden escuchar por teléfono llamando a nuestra línea de audio en español, que ya está activada en estos momentos. El número y el código de acceso están en la invitación para este evento.
Second, we have American Sign Language interpreters as well. To continue to see them throughout the town hall, please just make sure to keep your Zoom set to gallery view so that you can see all of us at once. If you're viewing on a mobile device, just swipe left until you can see multiple panelists on your screen.
Y segundo punto, también tenemos a intérpretes de lenguaje de señas americanos. Para verlos continuamente a lo largo de este foro, por favor asegúrense de elegir vista de galería en Zoom para poderlos ver a todos al mismo tiempo. Y en los dispositivos móviles deslicen a la izquierda hasta ver a varios panelistas en su pantalla.
Finally, you might notice that only our panelists are visible and audible. As we go through our discussion, we invite you to ask questions by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll get us to as many questions as we can. Please, in order to make us get to a lot of questions, try to make your questions brief. You can write your questions in Spanish if you'd like, that's no problem, or don't worry about spelling or if it's the right grammar, we'll get the point of the question. If we're not able to get to all the questions on this call, we will attempt to answer all the questions in the coming days. If you're joining us by phone, we won't be able to take your questions live, but you can email any questions you have that aren't asked by other people already and mail it to bd5info@lausd.net. And then we'll answer the questions and mail them back to you in a couple of days. Before I go over how this meeting will unfold, I want to encourage everyone who hasn't yet to please take a moment at the end of this meeting and go to 2020census.gov to complete your census form. I cannot tell you in this crisis how important it is that everybody in Los Angeles County get counted. It's how we get funded, and we need you to do that. Okay, done. Welcome to all our panelists. First, we'll hear from Joel Cisneros, who's the director of the LAUSD School Mental Health. After him, we'll hear from Flavia Cabrera-Rodgers, who's a psychiatric social worker and who's been stationed at Southgate High School and has a lot of practical ideas that we're going to hear from. After that, we're going to hear from Kanchana Tate, who's the Mental Health Clinical Program Manager with LA County Department of Mental Health. And finally, we'll hear from Ruth Beaglehole, a longtime parent educator, a person I relied on for most of my life about early childhood education, and the founder of Parenting with Nonviolence. And then we'll go to Q&A. So I guess we're ready. Take us away, Mr. Cisneros.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, and welcome everyone. Thank you, Board Member Goldberg and all the panelists here today joining us. I'm really looking forward to hearing you all and learn from each other, because I think that's the first thing to know, that we're all in this together, right? That we need to support each other in these moments. And certainly I think that the district has strong relationships with the County Department of Mental Health and other community-based organizations. And so I think this forum really demonstrates that. And I think for us really in LAUSD and the mental health department, we're very fortunate because we have close to 500 psychiatric social workers throughout the school district. So with this pandemic, we've been able to make sure that we are being able to meet the needs of the mental health needs of those students and families we serve. And in a moment, you'll hear from my colleague, Flavia, and she'll talk a little bit more about that. But, you know, going into this, it was really important for us to ensure that we were meeting the needs of those students and families that we're serving. And so right off the bat, what we ended up doing a lot was developing continuity of care plans. So we wanted to make sure that all students that were receiving some sort of mental health support through our department continued receiving that support. So much so that all of the students that are receiving services through our Clinics and Wellness Center program have been contacted to ensure that their families feel supported and that those students are receiving the support that they need. I know that our colleagues in the school-based program and other programs through our special ed program and our crisis counseling program have been doing the same. So the other thing that we did over the last couple of weeks, and I'm very excited to share, was that we have the capacity to deliver telehealth to ensure that students and families are receiving that video conferencing very much like what we're doing right here, right now. And it's all confidential and it's all safe. And so we have that capacity now all across our department to ensure that students and families are receiving that support. And
Joel,
so
I'm
yes.
getting feedback that some people can't hear you. Could you speak up a little louder, more loudly, please?
Okay, I'll speak up louder. I guess, is this better?
Even more, maybe.
All right, I don't know what's going on then with my mic. Maybe let's do this. Is this better? All right. So what I was sharing was that essentially one of the things that we've been doing is now we have telehealth as part of our services, and to ensure that families and students are receiving that support. We quickly then realized, as well as part of the crisis mitigation process, is that we needed to support families right now. And so we developed this mental health hotline, and the phone number is 213-241-3840. You perhaps have already heard of it, but we launched it on April 1st. And since that point in time, we've received close to 800 calls. And the majority of those calls are for mental health support. And a lot of people out there like you are calling this hotline. Close to 53% are parents that are calling for support. And not only for mental health support, but also for basic needs. So please call that line, 213-241-3840, and you can get some support and mental health consultation around whatever needs that you're having, but also around basic needs. So if you're needing some sort of rent assistance, some sort of financial assistance, you have questions around health, please call that line and you can get that support as well. The other thing we have been really quickly working on is to ensure that our partnerships are in place. And so in a moment, you'll hear from our partners at the LA County Department of Mental Health. And we've had a longstanding relationship with them. When we launched this hotline, we consulted with them, we were talking with them. I know we've consulted back and forth constantly. And they'll talk about perhaps about the Headspace initiative around meditation services that are being now free for all LA County residents. So for us, we want to make sure that we continue this partnership with LA County Department of Mental Health and others as well. In the Office of Parent and Community Services, for example, next Tuesday, we'll be launching a workshop around how to support your students and families during, as the summer break comes up, around social emotional learning. And so, I think the message here is that we want to make sure that you come back to our website, the LAUSD Student Health and Human Services website, and our school mental health website, so that you can obtain the most important information that's readily available. So I'm going to pass it on now to my colleague, Flavia Cabrera-Rodgers, and she can speak a little bit more about what's happening at the school site level.
But before she does that, give that phone number one more time, please.
Of course, yes, it's 213-241-3840. And it's available from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So again, please, Monday through Friday, please, we encourage you to call if you have questions. It's being utilized. We have mental health professionals on call throughout the day. And like I said, there's a lot of support that you can receive there.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to add that the hotline will be open over the summertime so that families can use it. Good evening to everyone. I feel so honored and privileged to be here. Thank you, Jackie, and your team for inviting me. It's really a great honor. Thank you. I want to also thank the families that have invited us to their home today. Jackie, just wanted to say to you that I remember fondly our days together in the rain in January, and you're modeling for us strength and hope, and thank you so much. It meant a lot to all of us. When I was introduced, it was said that I am the psychiatric social worker at Southgate High School. Both at the high school and at our local district social worker team led by Lorena Valencia, who's an amazing coordinator. I want to tell you that both are doing everything behind lines that you might not see it. We're not physically at the school, but we have Zoom meetings regularly. We share resources. I talk to teachers, to students. So more specifically, I want to share with you that the job that we have been doing now at home has been supporting our teachers so they can go ahead and do their great lessons with the students. And the way we're doing that is I receive emails regularly, or I receive calls, and they will refer students that they're very worried about. We talk about maybe how they can also help the students, and sharing a lot of resources also. The second piece has been reaching families and supporting them. Parents are amazing. They're the first, they answer our calls first. And, we ask to speak to their children, and they are very hungry and very thankful for any help that we give them. With the students, it has been from, talking about technology and how can, I get a laptop, to I'm really sad, and then our cases where there have been students who have hurt themselves, or who are thinking about hurting themselves, and we have had hospitalizations. All those things unfortunately do continue. And the last piece I think that I've been doing a lot of is just finding resources that we can share with the students. And once again, our school mental health social workers, school-based social workers in East, we share, we have two ways. We have something that's called Schoology, and we also have a group Me, and we're constantly sharing resources from videos that they have made. I mean, there's so many, one of the silver lining has been realizing the amazing people all over, all the things that they are coming up with and using. So I feel like a clearinghouse, which is great as far as resources, you know, just gathering them and sending them to the clients. So thank you once again, and we'll talk some more.
Before we go on, thank you so much. Before we go on, can I ask Gregory to move his screen a bit, because people are saying they can't see your hands. They're going too low. Thank you. All right, next. I think we're next hearing from Miss Tate. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for having me be part of this really important discussion around well-being and mental health. I'm really happy to be here with my panel members, and some of them are my partners we've worked with for a very long time. So I do want to share some of the resources that the department has available to our school communities as well as LA County residents. But before I do that, I just kind of want to take a minute to kind of highlight how this pandemic has impacted our families. While we know that this is a public health crisis, we also know that this is a mental health crisis. And when we look at our school communities, you know, there's so many different factors that have impacted our families and our students and our teachers. And so I just want to take a minute to kind of highlight 4 areas. And these are just very, like, 4 areas. There's so much more that is going on. So that is, the 4 areas are loss of social connections, loss of daily routines, cancellation and postponements of milestone celebrations like graduations, and added stressors for our educators, for our parents, and our students that are trying to learn in a different way, right? So when we talk about social connections, we as human beings, we are social creatures. We thrive and we learn, you know, interacting with each other, having meaningful relationships. And when we look at our kids and our youth, you know, they don't go to school just to learn, right? They go to school to socialize with their friends and to be part of a cohort. And to lose that, you know, pretty much overnight, that definitely impacts our kiddos' mental health and well-being, and our parents as well, right? When our kids are crying to us, saying that they miss their friends, how do you console your child? Then the loss of daily routines, right? School provided such great structure for our kids to really learn and gave them stability. They know what to expect. And this area has also been really impacted. And so you may see your child, your youth, dealing with anxiety or worry, like what's coming next. You may see some kids not wanting to go online and learn or do their packets. So how do you engage your child in learning? So those are some of the things that, you know, we want to really think about. And then cancellation of like milestone rituals, celebrations like graduations, right? 5th graders going into middle school, 8th graders going into high school, and our high school seniors, how much they have lost through this pandemic. You know, just like signing yearbooks, right? Saying goodbye, all those rituals that help the seniors have closure when they move on to college or a career path, right? And then the last area that I really want to highlight is the added stressors. Overnight, our educators were asked to pivot, figure out how to teach online. Our parents, you know, I'm a parent of 2 kids in the LAUSD systems, and trying to manage career and helping my kids learn has been very challenging. But it's also given me a little bit of insight to how my kids are in school. But, you know, just those stressors also impact parents' well-being, right? And how do you as a parent take care of your well-being so you can support your child? Because your regulation is really important. Meeting your needs is really important as well.
We're going to take a breath for a moment and let Fidencio tell people how to get connected to Spanish if they weren't here at the very beginning of the meeting. So just hold on.
Okay.
Gracias. Si acaban de entrar a la reunión, por favor, hagan clic en el botón que está al pie de la pantalla donde dice interpretación y elijan español. Si es de que no pueden por ese medio, pueden encontrar el número de teléfono en la invitación para entrar por teléfono también. Muchas gracias. De nuevo, si quieren escuchar la reunión en español, hagan clic en el botón interpretación al pie de esta pantalla.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Continue, Ms. Tate.
Thank you.
Just
So,
want to make sure everybody could understand you.
of course. Thank you. So now I would like to transition to some of the resources that we are offering families and children and residents throughout LA County. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see a PowerPoint presentation. It has a lot of information around websites and numbers to call. Let me see if I can do this. I'm learning technology as well, so excuse me. Okay, so I want to begin by sharing our We Rise campaign. This is a campaign we started back in 2018, and this year it's all virtual. And it really helps us talk about well-being and mental health using the arts and music. And it promotes resilience, well-being, and recovery. So please join. We have daily activities where you can get up and dance and have dialogue with people using art and music and really learn about mental health through that lens. The next is our Headspace. Joel referenced that during his portion of the presentation. And so Dr. Sharon has really made efforts to make sure that the well-being of LA County residents are taken care of. And so we have partnered with Headspace to provide this meditation app to all residents throughout LA County. So if you go on to our website and you see this palm tree, you click on it, you can be routed to how to kind of navigate that system. And so it's pretty much meditation mechanisms around meditation exercises. It has sleep exercises, just movement types of exercises. So, and it's really supposed to help you kind of ground yourself and take care of your well-being, especially during this pandemic. So please do take advantage of that resource. It's available through 2020. The next is our 800 number. You know, LA County Department of Mental Health has an access line that is in operation 24 hours. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've kind of pivoted and wanted to make sure that we are supporting a variety of communities. So we still have access to crisis services. So if you're in crisis and need immediate attention, you can call that number and you can choose that channel. That channel also supports in linking to other resources, like supportive resources. Then we also have another channel. It's our emotional support line. And it is for LA County residents. So if you don't have an imminent crisis, but you really need somebody to talk to because you're struggling that day, or you know, you just need a listening ear. So you also have that option. And then we also have our LA County Wellbeing line, which is for our first responders. If you've experienced loss, you can also have somebody kind of support you through that, help you through that, and also link you to resources. And then, oops, sorry. The next one is Wellbeing for LA. So this is our partnership with UCLA Center of Excellence. And this platform provides a variety of different trainings for educators, for counselors, anybody who is supporting a child or a youth. So it has trauma-informed trainings to just supporting your child manage stressors. So if you're interested, you go on this website and you can register and take advantage of a variety of different trainings to enhance your skills. And the last resource we have is, because of the pandemic and the school closures, we wanted to make sure that our kids that need mental health services had access to the mental health services. So what we have done is we worked very closely with LAUSD. We're working very closely with our LACO partners. And my team and I have a system set in place where educators, counselors can generate a referral and send it to my team, and we triage, talk to the family, gather information, and we link them to a mental health provider. And during that linkage time, we provide support for the family. So these are just some of the resources that the Department of Mental Health has to offer. I encourage you to take advantage of that. And just to leave you with, we have, during this time, it's really important that we support each other, right? And taking care of yourself is also very, very important. So you're the expert of you. You know when your well-being is well, and you know when you need support. And the sooner you ask for support, the sooner you heal your mind. And I just want to leave you with that. So thank you.
Thank you. And now Ruth Beaglehole will share a few thoughts, and then we'll go to questions after you're done. Thank you for joining us, Ruth. You have to unmute. You have to press up here and unmute.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for asking me. I've been leading support groups and talking and supporting a lot of parents, and I just know how hard this time is for so many of you. I really hope that those of you who are parents will really take note of all these resources, because it's feeling to me like most households are walking around with this being on their shoulders right now, like who's occupying a huge space in the house called fear, fear, uncertainty, stress. And it's like things aren't the same, things are not the same in most people's houses. And oh my goodness, those of you who are working at home and you have little ones at home and you have older children at home, and you have to produce a story of a poor mother who had 3 little ones at home, and one of the children sort of put hands on the computer and banged it, and things were lost, and the tension and stress that this is all generating. So I cannot agree more how important it is to really be aware of our bodies, be aware of the stress we're carrying, be aware of the importance of pause. Pause, I need to stop a minute. I need to take a breath. I know what's going to come out of my mouth right now is a threat or a bribe or a consequence. I don't want to do that. I'm going to go wash my face. I'm going to do something. I'm going to dance. I'm going to do something to relieve the stress. Because children, and this is a huge ask, but this time is really asking us to model for our children what it means to get through this crisis. There is so much learning about how to live, which will become a template for children in the future going through other crises. How did my parents support me? What were the stories that we were told? Were my needs met? Did I feel felt? Did I feel understood? And that's a big demand on a parent who's already feeling really stressed. I love the idea of people just having an empathy buddy, whether that be a relative, a friend, oh, I'm about to lose it. So you pick up the phone and you call a friend. Help me down, help me off the cliff, you know. And we tell our children, you know, I'm going to call so-and-so because I really don't, I'm sorry I'm talking to you like this. And when we do lose it and we really do get impatient and we are dysregulated, that we go back and repair it. We go back and, you know, Mommy was so stressed. I'm so sorry that I yelled at you like that. You know, this is all the learning in this time. There's nothing more important than being a co-regulator with our children. We can be a co-escalator or we can be a co-regulator. And for many of us, maybe who weren't raised with knowing how to deal with big feelings, maybe we're getting triggered in our own stories, maybe we've got our own trauma that's coming out at this time. It's a big demand. So I hold my hands like this. This is the sort of symbol for empathy. And sometimes we just have to hold it up to ourselves to give ourselves self-empathy. And so we can actually let what's alive for our children just fall into our hands. Please remember that screaming, timeouts, threats, consequences might feel like they're getting you through that moment, but that's actually not going to leave children really feeling heard and understood. So it's all about empathy. It's all about self-care. It's all about storytelling, holding sadness. Really important, as you, all the other panelists have talked about, holding loss, because it's through that sadness that adaptability will ultimately come. You know, I have grandchildren who were meant to be graduating and going to college. I have, you know, middle school and another daughter graduating from, you know, getting her degree. And what do we do? How do we hold the loss these children are feeling? And yet, don't throw it all down and saying it's all awful. We've got to hold hope. We've got to hold hope that there will be a time of some normality. Can't paint the world as a miserable place, because why would I want to grow up in it? So we have to also hold hope. So children can say, this is a good world. This is difficult and crazy now, but I want to live this life in this world. I want to contribute. I want to be creative in it. Thank you.
That was quite helpful to me already. Thank you. Before we go on, we did get a note from a Zoomer who says, Joel, would you please talk about when that mental health call or meeting is going to take place and how they can do that, and then we'll take questions.
Yes, it's going to be next Tuesday from 5 to 6:30. And for more information, you can find it at the website for Parent and Community, the Parent and Community Services branch. And what I could do in a moment, I could share my screen and put a link, and then we can post it as well.
That's a very good idea to post it. Okay. So the very first question I have is, how can all of us work together to develop a plan to provide the children with a distance learning education that is really excellent? What can we all do to make that happen? And I'm really going to ask any of you, I'm going to take a little of that one myself. I'm going to tell you all that we have had at least 50%, that's about 15,000 teachers who have signed up for a 30-hour course on how to do distance learning better. That's more than half of all the teachers in the school district. I'm very proud of that, because you can offer something, it's not required, and people could just say, I'm not interested. Well, that tells you that we are all learning. We are trying to figure out how to do what we haven't done before better, because summer school is going to be distance learning. I hope not the fall semester, but even that could be. So part of what we have to do is know that it is a learning exercise for all of us, and not to be mad at ourselves or each other or someone else because it isn't perfect now, because it isn't perfect now. I'm very unhappy with how it is, but it is what we could do after only 2 days before we knew we were going to all be distance learning. Let me say, there is plenty of help if you're having a hard time getting help. And we're going to post a bunch of numbers on our website and also on our Facebook so that you can get help if you're having technical problems with machines that you have for the kids, or if you just don't understand what the teacher just suggested your son or daughter do. We have help for you for that, and we're going to post those numbers. So anybody else want to talk about how we can all work together to make this distance learning work better? Feel free. No takers. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. The next question is, what resources are available for parents to support the mental health of their children? Now, we heard some of that already, but what specifically? Maybe I'm going to ask Flavia to start with that. Can they call their school to get help? Or do they call you? Who do they call? Do they call Joel if they need help? I know we have the hotline, 213-241-3840, but maybe they want to talk to somebody at their school. Can they do that, Flavia?
Yes, so how it has happened at Southgate High is that often the teacher will know, perhaps they'll write them. That's usually how it's been happening. They'll write them a note saying, I'm really having a hard time. I'm not being able to concentrate, or I just don't feel like doing the work. And then the teacher realizes, that they need some assistance. So they'll involve the counselor, they often involve me. And that's how we start reaching out. The hotline that Joel was referring to is also something that's being used quite a lot. I know Kanchi did a wonderful job also in all those resources that sometimes I forget. Kanchi, that's so wonderful that County Mental Health has. But yes, I think there's always someone at the school, and we know that young people want to prefer or may accept better help from someone that they know, more comfortable. They've already established that rapport. So definitely, yes, the schools and the teachers, just wanted to add, they're doing at least 3 times check-ins with the students. Well, they'll write, how they communicate in Schoology, which I'm not 100% sure how that happens. But they will ask a question, how are you doing? Or maybe do a reflection on how was your weekend. And they also are somehow assessing, students that way also. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Ruth. Unmute.
I am. I want to just say that, many of our families have a lot of resources within them. Aunties, uncles, neighbors, grandpas, who can be brought in to families, to support families and supplement young people. I think we have to sort of widen the concept of education at this time. I know there's a lot of emphasis on schoolwork and academics, but I'm also thinking this is a time where there's a lot of creativeness that children can be encouraged to explore. And I think that for some children, that can be a way into academics. If they feel there's some way some of their passions are being addressed. So I just wanted to sort of, that whole idea of family members and neighbor to neighbor and looking at who's available on your street to support, I want to encourage that as well.
Anyone else? Okay, next question. What are some suggestions for maintaining social connections when FaceTime and Zoom is unappealing after you've spent all day online doing your homework? Go ahead. Ms. Tate.
Yes. So social connections can take a lot of different forms, right? So it could be writing a letter to a family member or a friend that you can share, writing an email, drawing and sending it to somebody. You know, I've seen birthday celebrations happen where people are driving by just to say happy birthday, and they drop off a teddy bear on the yard, but they're not, you know, they're physically distancing themselves. So those are just some ideas that I've seen. I think folks are really thinking outside of the box. Parents are really thinking outside of the box, and finding ways to connect other than just being on Zoom or learning on Skype. You know, and it does take, we have to be calm and regulated to be able to think outside of the box, right? So like Ruth was saying, you know, it's really important to kind of take care of yourself and for parents to ask for their support so they are able to get their creative juices going to support their kids to connect differently.
I've also told my grandchildren when I saw them on Skype to use the telephone. I know that's an odd thing to say to kids these days, but call up your friends and talk to them. And they are. Go ahead, Flavia. I know you wanted to add something.
I'll go. Okay. So, and I think that's such a good point, Jackie, because even I have 2 young boys as well, 7 and 9. And one of the things that to this point is, I think, twofold. I think one is, yes, like Kanchi said, writing a letter, right? Imagine you're including some you know, some handwriting. You kind of like, there's some thinking and all of that, and it's, you know, it's actually fun. And think about, like, when was the last time they wrote a letter? The other piece is like connecting with your child in a way where you haven't connected in the past. Like, I think, like, for example, I think is a good example of like, how are you able to then all of a sudden engage in some of the playing that perhaps they're engaged in, including them in your kind of activities. So if you're prepping a meal or you're prepping something, like all of a sudden including them. So it's connecting in different ways as well. So Flavia?
Okay, yes, thank you. I was thinking as far as connecting that, you know, we know that when we help others is the best way to help ourselves, right? And when we talk about depression and sadness, we think about, you know, what can you do for others? And sometimes, you know, you get that back. So the most wonderful things on TV, commercials, and even some friends that send pictures around the block are these beautiful demonstrations of usually young people with shock, you know, or they're painting the windows, and they're thanking, you know, the doctors and the firemen and all those people that are helping us now. And we're so blessed by them. And we also know that sometimes when we're going through a hard time, if we take a step forward, sometimes we gain back that power that we've lost. So all these things, and like Joel was saying, and Ruth, and, you know, Kanchi, really, this is a wonderful time to find out what other passions we have, how different we can, you know, play with our kids. So thank you.
Question I have is, how do you support your children's mental health when you as a parent are frustrated? Go ahead.
I think that's a really important question. And, you know, I mentioned the pause, you know, I mentioned if we as parents or caregivers can be really in touch with our bodies, you know, when we feel the stress coming, when we feel, might feel our hands, or you know, the most important thing we can do is go to our regulation toolbox, regulation basket, which we have to think about beforehand. And I think, you know, encourage people to think about that. What helps me come back. What helps me come back? We call it our green zone, our higher brain zone, when we can think, what are my tools? Do I need to, is it something to do with my, am I a yeller? Is that where all my energy is? So maybe I need to get some gum in my mouth and, or take a drink, you know? Am I a kinesthetic and, you know, am I feel like I'm gonna hit my kid or spank my kid? You know, what do I do? How do I, you know, I tell some people who are kinesthetic regulators, put a skipping rope in the back of your pocket and just say, oh, I need to jump. I need to get that energy out, you know. If I'm a visual regulator, auditory regulator, whatever kind of sense I use to calm myself down, work it, have a basket, have the tools there. And then what you're modeling for children is what they do when they get big feelings, because when they go into their, you know, dysregulated brain, the red brain or the blue brain off center, they need help to come back to that green zone. We call it the green zone, the thinking zone. You can't, when a kid is dysregulated, you can't tell them to talk. Tell me, talk right now. Tell me what you're feeling. There's no words. They need to be able to figure out how to calm down. For some teenagers, that might be the screen, actually. You know, it might be going away for a few minutes, but we have to be modeling this stuff. And this could be a wonderful time of learning for your family. This discussion about regulation, not discussions about punishments and what you're going to do to your child to make them behave. How can this family have a culture of regulation, practicing these tools that help us calm down?
So very well said, Ruth, and I think this is a good segue for me to share with you these this resource that's going to take place next week. And so I mentioned that I'm sharing my screen now, and these are the two websites that you could visit for more information. And most importantly, this is the link that will be on those previous websites for the event happening next week. And once you click on there, it will take you to a page that looks very similar to this. And essentially what we're wanting to do is really talk about what Ruth just mentioned, stress management and emotional well-being. And so in this workshop, parents will be, have an opportunity, and all adults, to understand stress management and emotional well-being, how to identify those emotions, and talking about the relationship between emotions and behavior. And then, as Ruth was mentioning, also a feeling thermometer. What does that mean? Like, how do you start introducing that language at home so that you can help yourself and help your child as well? So I really hope that you're able to attend this. As you can see, both of these links lead you to this page. Sign up, it's free. It's next Tuesday from 5 to 6:30. I really encourage you to attend. And I think to the question, how can parents become equipped, is through knowledge right now. I think we're all trying to understand what this means. And so this is a wonderful opportunity.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Tate.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Just a quick tip, and this is really easy to do, is when you are very upset with your child, right? Take your hand and put your hand over your heart and see how fast your heart is beating, right? And then just taking really deep breaths to calm and slow that heartbeat down. And you can even do that with your kids. Say, okay, we're both really upset right now, and let's figure out how we calm our heart and our mind. And let's just take a lot of deep breaths, and you just kind of do that together, and it kind of helps you regulate. So that's a very simple tip. Thank you.
And I know from my own experience that sometimes this happens around the children's homework, and you're trying to get them to do it and they really don't want to do it. I remind people that this is very stressful to try to do this at home without your peers next to you, without you being able to raise your hand and get the teacher to come over and talk to you. So I encourage parents to say, if you're having too hard a time right now, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's do something else. Why don't we get a little snack, some fruit, a little cheese? We'll come back again. And then when you come back again, start them on something that's really so easy for them, they can snap right through it. Because what you're saying to them is, this is not easy. You're not in school. You don't get the normal help you usually get. Lots of our children, for example, work in small groups at school. And they don't have that support from those peers to help them with this. This is really hard stuff. This is really hard stuff. And we're asking, what, 7-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 14-year-olds to have the maturity to do this? I don't know if I could have. I'm telling you. So I'm just saying, whatever you can do to take a break when you need to say, no, you don't have to keep doing it right now. Yes, I get it that you're having a hard time. And I'm going to give you one more phone number, 213-241-3840. By the way, all the numbers that you've seen here and all the items will be on our website and on our social media, so that you can follow up on anything that was said here. But that number that I just gave you, 213-241-3840, that's for families to get help. Oh my God, we turned on the technology and it isn't working. We still don't have internet and it's not working. I don't understand what the teacher's assignment means. What do I do to help my kid if I don't understand the assignment? 213-241-3840. That's a one-stop place to get help for you to understand what's going on in your home in terms of schooling. Let me say now that the next question is, are there specific supports for families with special needs children other than just regional centers?
So I know, for example, with school mental health and some of our providers, there are some children that do have mental health services as part of their IEP. And so those services have been continued and they continue to be delivered. Our staff are continuing to outreach and support their mental health needs. And so I know that still continues to be a commitment. And I think the question here too is like being able to connect back as well with your teachers and your school staff to see what type of support there is for you, because each child and their needs are unique. And so I really encourage families to reach out to their teachers, to their school site administrator to get that support that they need that's very individual to that child.
Question. Next question. No, somebody else want to answer? Okay. Next question. Parents need support with technology in order to help their children. You've said much about training teachers. When will parents be trained on technology? That's a question that this may not be for this panel. That's a question basically that you should go online to the school district, which is LAUSD.net or achieve.lausd.net. And you can find the phone number or the email or the way to reach the local district. And it is the local district, central, north, south, east, west, northwest, northeast. They are holding parent workshops. We'll try to put one of those for board district 5 areas, which is central and east, and we got 3 schools in west. So we'll put those dates up also on our website, and you can find out where you can. There is actual parent training going on as we speak, and we'll let you know more about that. Okay, next question. What is happening with the closure of inclusion pilot programs? If the district closes a special ed classroom, do students get to stay on campus for full inclusion? Would transportation be provided if currently on an IEP, even if it's not their home school? I'm going to answer that one as well. this basically deals with what happens when we begin to reopen schools. And frankly, we don't have any answers to your questions. And the reason we don't is because we can't figure out yet how we're going to open schools. Are we going to have 3 classrooms per teacher so that there are 10 kids in a room and they're 6 to 10 feet apart? Are we all going to wear masks? Are we going to go on different days of the week? I will say this, we are very absolutely committed to inclusion. So whatever we do to open up will include inclusion for special ed students. We just don't know what it is we're going to open up or how we're going to do it. This is a very complicated issue. And every time we try to think about it, I get a little bit of a headache because I can't figure out how to make it happen. But I do know we are committed to inclusion. So if and when we open schools of any type and have classrooms of any type, inclusion will be included in that. Let's take another question. How can parents with special needs advocate for their child when a school administrator is not receptive to the child's needs? This is a good question because that causes a lot of mental distress as well. Anybody want to try it? I think we'll start with you, Joel, and then maybe have Flavia come in.
Yeah, no, I think it certainly is a concern. And I think anytime that there is a concern that you feel that is not being addressed either by school administrator, there is also, especially with IEPs, you do have the process, you have due process. You're able to request additional supports and making sure that your needs are being met of your child. But aside from that too, is like, just like Jackie said, I think the anguish and the frustration that's associated with that, and especially in these times, right now, like you have heard already, like everyone's, tolerance for stuff is really low, right? And so it's really hard. So I think I would really encourage this person and anyone else that feels that your answers are not being met, that there is a process for you to be able to get that support and those answers.
Flavia, did you want to take a shot at this one?
Sure. So, I want to go a little bit, and I don't know if Kanchi also wanted to answer the earlier mom also, as far as what's there for the students that are in special education. As far as mental health, I just want to say very quickly that we also service, we also work with them. As Joel was saying, if they do have an IEP that has that type of service, it's a special social worker that does that, but we also at the school help. Probably this mom that's asking, the administrator is not listening to me, what do I do? Probably she's done a lot already. But I always encourage parents, and remind them how they talk to the teacher. I really want to believe that we here in the district, all of us are here to help, and we're here for a good reason. And sometimes the teacher may not understand clearly what's going on. And it all goes back to really listening to each other. And I think we've been saying that and hearing each other very carefully. Because I have been at the school in moments like that there's a mom and, something happened in the bus with a certain young girl as she was going home, special ed. Mom comes in and feels not heard, and there's many people around her, and mom is still upset. And then, somebody taking that moment to really sit down, maybe going into a private room, really, really hearing, really listening. I think it's so important. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we want to jump, to the administrator, to the district, and of course they're there to help, and as they should be, and we want to do that too. But just reminding them, to take the steps if they can and if they haven't. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel, there's been a request for you to put your chart back up about how to get on to the seminar or the webinar next week, and then read it to them, because some of the folks couldn't see it too clearly, especially those that are on the phone. So can you put your screen back up with how to do this, and then maybe just read it to them? You have to unmute.
Yes, there we go. So the part of the challenge is that the web link is really long, so I will read it, but it's essentially mobilize.us/LAUSD/event/273,981. But what I would recommend for all of you listening is to go to the webpage where achieve.lausd.net/PCSS, or just Google LAUSD Parent and Community Services, and those links will be there so that you can just click and then it will take you there.
And we will post them on our social media too, so that people can find them as
Right,
well.
and I'm going to leave it here for another second so that when people watch this in the replay, they can see this link. There.
Okay, this is streaming live on Facebook, and it is recorded there. So if you did miss any of this, you can go to our Facebook page, Jackie Goldberg's Facebook page, and you'll find it there. I have two questions I'm going to ask at the same time because they're the same kinds of questions, and I would really like lots of answers. One is, what do I do when I try to help my 6-year-old child with his homework, and he looks at me right in the eye and says, "You're not a teacher, I want my teacher"? And the other question is, how do I help my child understand that this might be going on for a very long time? Go ahead, Ruth.
You know, I think that what's under a lot of these questions is this very deep sense of loss. You know, it's like that 6-year-old is saying, you know, I've lost what I know, you know, and, you know, it's not really meant to be mean or like getting back at mom. He's mourning, grieving the loss of what he knows. And I feel like with some of those special ed questions too, though, you know, those parents must be so fearful and just so full of loss and just, you know, just, will I ever get the support I need for my child again? Even though I know, Jackie, you're saying, you know, schools are gonna somehow, something's gonna happen. The day-to-day stuff feels very desperate, you know? So I would say to that, you know, little boy or little girl, I know, I hear you. You are really missing your teacher. This is really hard, isn't it? You really wish Mama was your teacher that was here and isn't Mama. I know. You know, that holding it, writing a book about, I'm a great believer in writing narrative books for children, making, you know, coherent stories out of loss. Just get a piece of paper. Little boys, Ruth spoke about feeling sad. Ruth spoke about missing her teacher, you know, and you just sort of, and you don't sort of end those little books by saying, well, if you just do your work with Mommy, then maybe you'll see your teacher sooner or something, you know, some sort of threat like that. No, you just hold, there's nothing more valuable than empathy to get us through this. Putting yourself in the shoes of your child, not trying to talk to their higher brain, talk to them out of what they're feeling, but being very present. You're really missing your teacher. You really feel sad right now. Would you like a hug? Would you like to draw a picture? Would you like to think of writing her a note? You know, whatever. Because that's what's going to help children get over the hump. You know, if we try to sort of, I'm your teacher, sit down and listen to me. We're losing this incredible opportunity we have now about emotional literacy, building children's emotional intelligence, you know, like that. And if we don't have it and we're not getting it, it can be really hard to give it to our kids, you know, so that comes back to us again, you know, who's taking care of my feelings? How do I get the support so I can be present for my child?
Okay, go ahead, Flavia. You have to.
Hi, and I want to say, Ruth, I really, really like you, and I want to see where I can go hear you more. That's well, wonderful. And just kind of what Ruth was saying. And if you know me for a minute, you will know that I love quotes, and I can't finish the day without giving you a quote. And one of the ones that I think it's appropriate for now, is something about that the greatest human need is to be understood. And sometimes when I'm meeting with parents, I ask them, can you be a therapist for a day? And, you know, if you ask my son, who's probably listening now, he says, Mom, you don't do that with me. And you're right? Because moms, it's really hard to do, as Ruth was saying, right? But we as therapists, when I sit with a young man, I can sit there, I can listen to him unconditionally. You know, there's no wrong, there's no right. I mean, he's just perfect the way he is. I'm listening, I'm not talking back, I'm not correcting him, I'm not putting him down. And, you know, really, like Ruth was saying, listening to all the loss. And, you know, I know I was talking earlier to Joe about coming here with you, and I was remembering, you know, loss is not just about death. Loss is, it could be the most smallest thing that you're missing, you know, like going to lunch or having breakfast with your boyfriend before school. And I always remember, one time I took a trip to New York, and I had this big old bag, and I had a million things inside, and I decided to go to it was college, like to go to college with it. And it so happened it was stolen. It was stolen. And can I tell you that there was all of my favorite things were there. And there was this brush that I loved that I missed for years. I think I still miss it. And I was very young, so much younger. You know, just understanding of everything that we're going through, and just hearing. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Go ahead, Ms. Tate. Somebody address how you deal with the kids who are saying, is this going to be forever?
Yeah, and I think, you know, Ruth and Flavia, you guys really did a great job in summarizing. I think it's really acknowledging, right? Because we don't know what this will look like, right? And really acknowledging the loss of things. And, you know, when that 6-year-old says, you're not my teacher, you know, just like Ruth was saying, you know, yeah, you're right, I'm not your teacher. And it's so hard, right? And how do you as a parent then reach out to the teacher and help that connection for that child, right? Because he's in a lot of ways saying he misses his teacher too, right? So making that social connection in that sense. And I'm sure the teachers would love to hear that their kiddos miss them, right? It's like, oh, okay. And then maybe get some tips from the teacher. You know, what did you do in your classroom to help him? Maybe I can replicate some of that, or maybe I can do something similar to that. So really acknowledging and empathizing with our children, and giving them hope, but not making a lot of promises, because we don't know what this will look like as we move forward, right? But it is there's so many great opportunities for emotional growth for our kids in what's happening and supporting them.
And I think I'll add that last piece, Jackie, around, I think you started mentioning it, Kanchi, when we think about resiliency, and we think there's 5 resiliency factors that we as a department always talk about. And one of them is hope, right? The power of hope. You know, you think about, like, that is something that we could always nurture, and always, regardless of how much money in the bank account that we have. Hope is something that we can have. And this idea that, you know, reminding children that while this situation may be very difficult, and it might be challenging, that it is temporary, right? It is temporary.
It's a long temporary.
Right. We don't know how long it's going to be, but, you know, this too shall pass. And that gives hope, right? That gives them the hope to continue to and approach each of those situations, each of those storms one by one. But it's going to be difficult. It is, you know, and we're not going to sugarcoat it. I think everyone in this panel has said that. And I think the worst thing to do is to really then stifle what your child is saying, to not encourage it. I think it's the opposite, right? We want them to feel safe and encourage those words and those self-expressions.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Jack, I just wanted to maybe try to answer also that about forever. And I think that maybe thinking back about a time, and I think we've all had moments where we've been through difficult things, and how are we here now after we've been through all that we've been through, and really talking about remember then, and you know what helped you then. And yeah, I talked to my grandmother then. Okay, maybe we can, you know, go and talk to your grandma. You know, so kind of remembering those moments that we were strong, and maybe doing them again. Thank you.
Jackie, I just want to add, you know, I know there are children who are living in tremendous fear, maybe housing insecurity, food insecurity, job insecurity, you know, like, you know, I just want to name that, you know, that for those families, this is a huge, oh, I can only imagine what it must feel like to be living with such big, big issues. So some of the things we might have been saying, you know, may seem, okay, you know, when I get dysregulated, I can breathe, you know, those are very important. But I do want to honor that those children who are living with these huge burdens that they're holding for their family, and the parents may or may not have the resources, you know, the emotional bandwidth to really support them. You know, I hope that, you know, I hope there is a website that is really geared for young people, you know, that is really talking to them about sort of an accessible, I don't know what, but you know, that's geared for their resources, you know, geared. And, you know, I know, for instance, as for families with domestic violence, there's this, you know, being talked about, I need a mask, you know, make a call, I need a mask, you know, that being, well, whatever, some mantra or some code that means I need help, you know. So I know that, you know, you social workers must be identifying those youth, but I want to hold them in this conversation, hold the hugeness of what that is for many of the children. And thank goodness the school district is providing that meal. You know, I've heard that might be the only meal those children are actually getting that day, you know. So I just want to name that. I don't want to make it all that it's, yeah, anyway, yeah.
No, the stresses are enormous. You know, so many people in our district are from low-income families, about 82%, and many of their parents have now been laid off. I mean, not just, you know, don't go to work because you're locked down, but you're not going to have work when we're not locked down. We've laid you off. So this is no joke. This is no joke. And depression is serious, and we're going to have a lot of kids who are depressed. I would urge parents, if you see your kids being depressed, isolating, getting quiet, not letting you in, banging a door and saying, I don't want to be in the room with you, I would suggest that you call your school and or go to your school's website. That's what you do. And find out who in their website is the counselors there. Get in touch with them. Get them some help. That's a person who they already know, which is a lot easier than somebody who's a stranger. The same thing, by the way, for looking for training for parents, whether it's technical training or emotional training to help them deal with their problems so that they can help their children deal with their problems. Also on your school's website is a lot of information about when the trainings are, how to get hooked up with them, and so forth. Now I'm going to give you a little easy question now that we've had a hard one. I'd like everybody here to say, what are some of the favorite indoor activities you do with children at home that might help parents who are thinking, I've run out of ideas. What can I do now? Let's start with you, Kanchi.
That's a great question. So we like to, you know, like I mentioned, I have 2 little ones, and we try to, I say try to kind of do a little bit of yoga, where we're like pretending to be frogs and just kind of stay in place, and then we jump up, ribbit. That's one thing. Sometimes, you know, snacks, eating together, just taking, you know, I'll have my tea while they have something, just having that moment, even if it's just 5 minutes between their, you know, online learning and my meetings, just to kind of connect. Sometimes it's important. Singing songs sometimes is great. So these are just some ideas.
Go ahead, Ruth.
I think family meditations, you know, like I think there are lots of apps, just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you know, together, a collective sort of, this is something we do together. Taking a walk with little kids and picking a flower, you know, like, I know now everybody has to wear a mask outside. And I know for some children, that's a struggle, you know, so parents maybe need to make a book about wearing a mask to support kids about that. Baking, you know, you couldn't hardly find any flour in the city at one point, but seems like everybody was baking, you know, so yeah.
You know, one of the favorite things that we like to do with my boys, or that I like to do, are is just cooking together. I think that has been such a great way to introduce you know, just this opportunity, and I don't know, it might be also a cultural component, you know, a father-son relationship, that when we're not looking at each other and we're both, you know, side by side standing, like we end up talking, right? And it just comes, you know, so that's great. So I would highly recommend that, especially for all the fathers, you know, watching this. I think it's really important to really, you know, break down those cultural barriers. And I think the second one that we really enjoy is listening to music. I'll ask them, what is your favorite song? And, you know, and then we kind of go around and everyone picks their own song. And I think that's a really neat way to connect and kind of just understand a picture into their world for a moment.
Flavia?
Okay, so I don't have little ones anymore, but I'm waiting for my son to help me with that one. So what you know, we would do once a week. He's newly married, and once a week we would get together for dinner. And now we're doing virtual dinners. So it is so cool. Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Usually they get ready, I get ready. We get on Zoom and we eat together. And then usually there's some conversation about this, about that. I told them I was going to be here. What should I say, right? All those things. But for me, also drawing, I think, and you know, I do it often with the young people. And drawing is an amazing thing that I think, you know, maybe getting some new colors, some paints, doing that. Thank you.
I personally like reading. I like to read to children. I like to read to young adults. I like to read to teenagers. I like to read to babies. I like to read to anybody. And then as they get a little older, we take turns reading the same book. I'll read a paragraph and I'll pass it along. But we did it at the same time every day, usually right after lunch. And because, you know, we've got a little fatigue and we've done some work in the morning, we had lunch, and every single day, 7 days a week, read together. It's really a lot of fun, and it can be in any language. That's the best part. It can be in any language you want. Okay, we're going to run out of time fairly soon, but I did have one question I want to manage to talk about. Somebody talked about a student becoming depressed because the teacher didn't have regular contact with their child, and now says that the student is not passing because they're not submitting assignments. The grading policy in LA Unified is no one will fail this year, period. Why did we do that? Everybody said, that's nuts. Some kids have just done nothing. Well, I got news for you. That's probably all they could manage this time. We're not going to penalize kids because they got their computers late, their laptops late, their internet late. We're not going to penalize students by failing them because they don't have yet the emotional maturity to stay online, or that they live in a household where it is really not conducive to getting online and being involved with each other. I had one parent tell me with 5 children that they can't all get online at the same time. So there's lots of problems that we can't control when they aren't in school, and we made a policy, no one will fail. So parent who wrote that question, your child is not failing any classes, period. End of discussion. We have a whole bunch of other really important questions I didn't get to. So folks wanted to know about drive-through graduations. They've seen them in other districts. Superintendent and I had a conversation about that yesterday. The problem is county public health believes it's a danger. I believe that if the county public health system thinks they can figure out how to open up a beach safely, we can do a drive-through graduation. So stay tuned on that one. We're still working on it. I think it's important to have a graduation. Even if you're in your car with your family and you're driving by your principal and the senior class counselor and you're getting your diploma, those things are important to young people, and we're going to try very hard to make them still happen. What kind of support are teachers and their families getting? Not enough, but they have a hotline for them as well. Oh, they wanted to know if we could do a webinar on resilience training. I think that's a terrific idea. So let's see if we can get some of the folks to do that. I think we're probably out of time, and I'm sorry that we are, but I wanted to take a couple of minutes to thank everybody. You know, all of you who are watching, you could have been doing something else. You could have been having dinner. You could have been reading a book. You could have been saying it's time to take a little time off, but you came and you joined us, and I appreciate it. I want to say that mental health is a very difficult topic because people say, oh, you must be crazy. And there's all this stigma, all this, something's wrong with you. Well, I don't know anybody, including myself, that a little counseling during this time wouldn't help. I don't know anybody who hasn't had noticed that when they were listening to the news, they were crying. I cry when I listen to the news. I never cried when I listened to the news before. I look at my grandchildren's pictures. I haven't seen them in months. I miss them. They used to be with me every other weekend, but now the virus keeps them far apart. It breaks my heart. And if you're feeling this stress and this pain, believe me, you are not alone. Do not be embarrassed to ask for help. Please do what I do. Ask somebody, help me get through this. We have to do this. We have to be well if we're going to help our children be well. And I know it's the hardest thing you may ever do, because we were trained very much as a child that mental health means you're crazy. There's something wrong with you. No, it's just like skinning your knee. It needs fixing. Put a Band-Aid on it. Get help. Okay, that's my preaching for tonight. I want to thank all of our guests and all of our experts. You are wonderful folks to spend time with us after you've already worked all day long, and we appreciate it. I want to thank our interpreters, both the ASL sign language interpreters and our Spanish language interpreters. You make it possible for more people to be involved in these situations and to help us help each other. Remember the phone numbers: the mental health hotline 213-241-3840. And also, any kind of problem you're having as a parent with a child on an instructional issue, the Parent Center number is 213-241-3840. We're going to answer all the questions that we didn't get to in a blog that will be on my, posted on my website. And we're going to continue having these meetings, and so that we can remind everybody, yes, we are in this together. Yes, we will get through this. And I have one little other small plea. Stay home. It's the only place you're safe. They're opening things up. Personally, I don't think it's safe. And I urge you, however much you can, stay home. Join me in thanking everybody and saying to everyone what I say to everybody every night. Wash your hands with soap and water and as much as you can. Keep your hands away from your face. Stay home. And if you are out, stay 6 to 10 feet away, even with a mask, because the mask only does so much. We can stamp out this epidemic, and we're going to. And with that, I want to thank all of you for being in this struggle and in this battle. This is how you sign language applause. So let me all applaud all of you and all of our folks who made this night possible, including my very hardworking staff who figured out all the technology, who got everybody connected to each other. They are wonderful. I love you all. And with that, I'm going to say good night. And everyone stay healthy, stay safe, find ways to have fun now that you're stuck all at home with each other. Thank you and good night. Have a good night.